Those of you who watch the Audrain Museum Network may know that I'm the master of the tenuous connection. But I'm going to challenge you with a not quite so tenuous connection because I'm driving a 1970 Dodge Challenger. And I challenge you to become a subscriber to this network if you're not already. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when we put up great new content. Thanks. We'll see you here often. (1970) was an amazing time in the U.S. automotive scene, and especially in the U.S. automotive racing scene. For people who like sports cars, there was the Can-Am series. Anything went, and usually did, if it was followed by the Bruce and Denny show. But there was also Trans Am. Trans Am wasn't new in 1970, but in 1970 it reached a height that it would never reach again. Now, one of the things that I loved when I was a kid growing up about Trans Am racing was the fact that it included the great American cars plus my favorite European cars. Well, by 1970, most of the Europeans, if not all the Europeans, had been hived off into a second category called U2, under 2 liter. Porsche had gone to a 2.2 liter engine, so they were out of the U2, and they really didn't have the power to match the US over 2 liter cars, so they were gone from Trans Am. But what was left in Trans Am was amazing. Every major US supplier had a car, and they were spending lots of money. $1 million an entry in 1970, when $1 million was a lot of money. You had American Motors with the Javelin, Ford with the Mustang, Pontiac with the Firebird, Chevrolet with the Camaro, and Mopar with the Cuda and the Challenger. It was an amazing time. Road racing took on the mantle that stock car racing had owned. The fact that you could win on Sunday and sell on Monday, and every one of the manufacturers wanted the bragging rights that their pony car was the one to have. And much like the Mustang Cougar twins and Ford, Chrysler had the Plymouth Barracuda and Dodge Challenger twins, but they weren't quite twins. They each had their own personalities, and the Challenger rode on a longer wheelbase, 111 inches versus 108 for the Barracuda, just as the Cougar was on a longer wheelbase than the Mustang. They were designed to appeal to a different market, a more sophisticated market, but nonetheless it was a market that wanted speed with style. These E-body Chrysler cars of this period are among the most beautiful cars ever designed in Detroit. And customers had a wide variety to choose from in terms of power when it came to these cars, from a car to drop the kids off at school with, to a car that could win on the drag strip and on the road racing track. This was the hottest ticket. This TA had a 340 cubic inch, 290 horsepower engine, equipped with this 6-pack with 3 2-barrel carburetors. This car was designed to run, and in the hands of Sam Posey, performed very well in the Trans Am of 1970. What also makes the car I'm driving right now very special is that it's a 1-year only model. This is a car that would come and go very quickly, but make great, indelible memories. To drive a car like this today is really to be transported to another time that seems like just yesterday, but was a very long time ago indeed now, when you think about it. But this is a car that has so much of its time just dialed right in. The Hirsch shifter, which is extremely positive and very direct, allied to steering that is the polar opposite. Not very positive and not very direct at all. And especially considering the amount of power available underneath my right foot, you have to be really committed to be able to use the power in this car, because it's right there on tap when you call on it. Obviously, the cars that were raced in the Trans Am series had a suspension and tires that were rather different than the ones on the road car I'm driving right now. But you can tell the pure speed that this car has. They don't weigh very much, and they've got a lot of power. The power to weight ratio of these cars is tremendous. And so that is really the combination. The horsepower, torque, and the weight really gives this car the presence that it had on the track and on the street. While this may not have been the dragster's favorite, it was never going to be embarrassed on the street at all. And it can handle. It's no Shelby GT350, but then again, it didn't have to be. The SCCA Trans Am races were something to behold. Watch film of them today. Not atypical of cars of this period. There is a bit of a rattle from the drivetrain. And cars of this time were more known for their style and power than for the build quality. But I think that a bit of that adds to the excitement, the presence of speed. You know that something's happening here all the time. Looking out over that great air induction hood scoop, you know this isn't any ordinary secretary's car for sure. With a car with this kind of power, it's good that the brakes are as good as they are, because the go-stop ratio is really important in a car like this. See, the thing that takes the most getting used to is to be really relaxed with the wheel. Let the car do what it's going to do, sort of travel around a little bit and just sort of be on it and control it without grabbing the steering wheel with a death grip. And you can get pretty comfortable behind the wheel of this car fairly quickly. You don't want anything sudden or sharp to happen in front of you, however. This is not a modern car with super sharp steering and ABS brakes, but nonetheless, it can give you a certain kind of a confidence to use some of the performance that's available. I think back to this time when these cars were new, and I think we were all just a bit braver, maybe a little less informed perhaps, but it was a time when people rode around in the back of pickup trucks as passengers, and people took their kids to school 3 at a time in an Austin Healey. So I'm not saying that they were necessarily the good old days, because, you know, to be alive is the best thing. To be able to remember the good old days is the best thing about it. But nonetheless, there is a certain freedom that comes in the mind of driving a car like this. And something that I talk about a lot, which is the fact that these cars are time machines. This does take me back to 1970. All the good and all the ill of the time, but nonetheless, it's that time. And I can't wait to get to an open stretch of road to let this beast feel a little bit of its strength. With the best of American sports cars competing against the best of the European sports cars. And we did see some great upsets with the under 2-liter cars beating the big block cars, but it was generally deemed a better idea to let everybody play in their own sandbox. And so the under 2-liter races were born. It did deliver more exciting races and closer races in both categories. But there is something to be missed in the mixing it up that the original classifications had. Old meets new. A new Challenger passes by in the road, making a symbolic salute to its predecessor. That the Challenger nameplate lives on is, of course, obviously slightly accidental, because with the demise of the Plymouth nameplate, reviving Barracuda would have been difficult, and Dodge existed, so therefore it made more sense to bring back their performance car than to try to attach the Barracuda to the Dodge nameplate. But it's also worth noting how incredibly different performance then and now is. The Dodge Challenger, especially in its Demon form, would be a terrific Trans Am style road racer, although it's heavily promoted as a drag car. With the way it handles and the way it's built and the power it has, it would be fascinating to see that. And with the NASCAR Camaro having gone to Le Mans this year, perhaps, who knows, Stellantis might be convinced to mount an entry for a Challenger. And then, who knows, we might actually see, rather than the current NASCAR racing that we have today, a revival of the old Trans Am style races. NASCAR already does a number of road courses, so who knows? Could be something very exciting. But I do know this, that TA, this limited edition, 1 year only Dodge Challenger, is a great tribute to that wonderful period of time, that lost moment when Trans Am shone above practically all other racing in the USA. I'm going to go and watch some great movies of Sam Posey driving these cars right now. That'll be a lot of fun.